I always thought that if something life-changing ever happened to me, it would come with some sort of signal, music swelling in the background, maybe a dramatic thunderclap or a sudden power outage. But no. When it happened, there was cranberry sauce. There was store-bought stuffing. There was my aunt humming an old Elton John song while scraping burnt bits from a casserole dish. No cinematic soundtrack. Just the soft clatter of mismatched plates and the smell of overcooked turkey wafting through a too-warm house. It was Thanksgiving, and I wasn't expecting anything. That's the dangerous part when you stop expecting anything at all. I smiled like I always do, tucked my cardigan tighter, and stepped into the house like it didn't still feel haunted by silence. My boyfriend Ethan walked beside me, hand steady on the small of my back, like he knew I needed to borrow his presence to breathe. Ethan notices things. He's a documentary filmmaker, quiet and meticulous, the kind of man who watches the room even when no one knows he's paying attention. I brought him with me not because I needed backup, though maybe I did, but because I wanted someone in the room who saw me. My cousin Lila was already swirling her wine in the corner, dressed in something crisp and expensive. Her fiancé mumbled greetings through clenched teeth. My parents smiled like they meant it, which, honestly, made it worse. Dinner was dinner. Familiar, forced, the kind of conversation that tugs at the edges of your sanity. My Aunt Marcia asked Ethan about his YouTube hobby, and my dad asked me, loudly, why I still lived in a one-bedroom like it was a crime scene. I didn't answer. I rarely do. After dessert, Marcia stood and clapped her hands together. "Well," she said, eyes gleaming with that brand of performative joy I'd grown up with, "I have a surprise for everyone." That was never good news. I brought out the portrait. Portrait? She disappeared into the hallway and returned with a framed canvas almost the size of the dining table. "This," she said proudly, "was painted by an artist in Sarajevo. I had it commissioned when Camila was little. Isn't it just beautiful?" Everyone leaned in. The painting showed our whole family standing in front of an old stone villa. My parents, Marcia, Lila as a toddler, and me, maybe 6 years old, in a blue dress and red shoes. Ethan stiffened. He didn't say anything at first, just leaned in slightly, eyes scanning the canvas with laser focus. Then, gently, he touched my hand under the table and whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, "Don't you see it?" I blinked. "See what?" His voice was lower now, almost shaken. "How can you not see it?" We didn't talk about it on the drive home. Ethan didn't push, and I didn't ask. My mind was still stuck on the way his voice had cracked, not in fear, but in recognition, like he'd just glimpsed something too big to unsee. He held my hand the whole way back, even when we hit traffic and I started picking at my thumbnail until it bled. He didn't say a word, just handed me a tissue when I needed one. It wasn't until we were inside the apartment, coats hung and lights dimmed, that he finally turned to me. "I need to show you something," he said. I nodded. He pulled out his phone, opened the gallery, and tapped through several photos he'd taken of the portrait. Zoomed in, cropped, enhanced. Then he pulled open my old storage box, the one I'd kept under the bed since grad school, full of childhood photos, school ID cards, birthday invites. I hadn't looked at them in years. He laid 3 photos side by side on the kitchen table, all from different ages, all from different places, one in front of a playground, one at a beach picnic, one with a Christmas tree. But my face, it was the same. Not just similar, identical. Same angle, same tilt of the head, same shadow beneath the chin. It looked like someone had copied and pasted me into different childhood moments. "This isn't natural," Ethan said. "Lighting doesn't behave like this. Expressions don't freeze like this. Look here. Your eyes are catching light from the same angle, even though the photos were taken years apart. That's not how reality works." I wanted to argue, wanted to laugh it off, but when I looked at them again, my stomach curled inward. Then he pulled out a 4th photo, one I had never seen before. "You were in the portrait," he said. But so was this image. The picture showed me, well, someone who looked like me, standing in front of an old fountain in what looked like Europe. But I wasn't alone. A woman stood beside me, her hand resting protectively on my back. She had dark hair pulled into a low bun, her eyes soft and tired. I didn't recognize her, and yet something about her posture made my chest ache. "Who is that?" I asked. Ethan watched me carefully. "I was hoping you'd know." I shook my head, but my throat felt tight. "That's not my mom." He hesitated. "Camilla, when's your earliest memory?" I opened my mouth, closed it, tried again. "I don't know," I admitted. Maybe age 5, standing in a hallway, somewhere cold, holding a clipboard, but I'm not sure if that's even real." He exhaled, slow and heavy. "I don't think they're your real parents." I laughed. A sharp, ugly sound. "That's ridiculous." But even as I said it, I couldn't stop staring at the woman in the photo, because a part of me already knew he was right. That night, I didn't sleep. I just lay there with the blanket pulled up to my chest, staring at the ceiling fan turning in lazy circles, pretending the world hadn't shifted under my feet. Ethan had fallen asleep on the couch. I could hear his breathing from the hallway, steady, soft, the kind of sound that used to comfort me. But nothing could comfort me now. I got up, padded barefoot to the kitchen. The photos were still there on the table, lined up in a perfect row like evidence from a crime scene. I sat down, stared at them again, tried to will them into making sense. They didn't. And then something shifted, something subtle, like a door creaking open in the back of my mind. I closed my eyes and tried to remember, not just the hallway, not just the clipboard, but everything. And something came, not a memory exactly, more like a sensation, a smell, orange peel and soap, the warmth of a hand holding mine. A voice, soft, musical, humming something I couldn't place. Then another memory, harsher. A different voice. My mother, standing in a doorway I didn't recognize, saying, "She's your babysitter." Smiling too wide, too rehearsed. I opened my eyes, my palms were sweating. I stood up quickly, breathing shallow, heart racing. Another image flashed through my mind. Me in a coat too big for my body, tugging at the sleeves, crying. "I want Mama," I was saying, and a hand, tight, cold, grabbing my shoulder. "Don't say that again," the voice said. "If you talk about her, you disappear." I staggered backward. My knees hit the chair behind me. Something cracked inside me, like a damn wall giving way after holding for too long. The next image came fast, me in a bed that wasn't mine. The walls yellow, sunlight too bright, screaming, kicking the covers, calling out, not for my parents, for her, the woman with the citrus scent. "Mama!" I was screaming. Then darkness. I collapsed onto the kitchen floor, couldn't breathe, my chest wouldn't rise. My fingers clawed at the tiles like they could keep me anchored to the moment. My ears were ringing, my vision blurred. Ethan ran in, eyes wide, crouching beside me. Camilla, hey, look at me." I tried, couldn't. He didn't touch me at first, just knelt there, matching my breath, coaxing me through it. When I finally gasped in enough air to speak, it came out broken and raw. "I think I've been taken," I whispered. "I don't think they're mine. I think someone lost me." Ethan held my gaze, eyes fierce now, and right there, on the cold kitchen floor, still trembling and soaked in sweat, I reached for my phone and dialed 911. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. 911, what's your emergency?" My mouth opened, but no sound came out at first. My chest still ached like I'd run a marathon on broken ribs. I looked at Ethan. His hand was on my back, steady, firm, the only thing keeping me from floating away. My voice cracked. "I think I was kidnapped." Silence on the line. Then a calm, measured voice. Ma'am, are you in immediate danger? I swallowed. No, not now, but I think I just remembered something. From when I was little, before I came here. I don't think my parents are who they say they are. Ethan leaned in, took the phone gently from my shaking hands. Hi, he said, his voice low but clear. My fiancée's been experiencing intense memory flashbacks. She found photos that appear digitally manipulated. There's a history of missing records. She has no memory before age 5, and what she does remember doesn't match the life she's been told. There was a pause. The operator didn't sound surprised. Where are you located? Ethan gave her our address. I'm going to log this as a welfare check, she said. You'll receive a follow-up call from the department's investigative unit. If at any point you feel unsafe, call back immediately. He thanked her. Hung up. We sat there in silence. 5 minutes later, I started crying. Not the panicked sobs from earlier. This was quieter, slower. The kind of crying that comes when your entire foundation has been turned to ash and you're just now realizing how long you've been standing on something hollow. By the next morning, the call came. A detective named Ramirez introduced herself and asked if I'd be willing to come in for a preliminary interview. She explained they'd run my name, Kamila Torovic, through both national and international databases. There was a match. A missing child report from Sarajevo, Bosnia-Herzegovina, filed 23 years ago. A girl named Leila Torovic, age 5, last seen at a market with her babysitter. The babysitter was never located. No charges were filed. The report went cold after the war escalated. My name wasn't Kamila, at least not originally. Detective Ramirez asked if I had any documentation, birth certificate, passport, naturalization papers. I hesitated. I didn't. There were no baby photos before age 6, no hospital records, no travel visas, no family photos that couldn't have been staged. It was like I had materialized out of nowhere. That night, an official case file was opened. I received the email just before midnight. Subject line: pending identity verification and international displacement case. I showed Ethan. He read it twice and simply said, "It's real now." But for me, it had always been real. Now it was just harder to deny. 2 days later, they knocked on my door like nothing was broken. 3 soft taps, no urgency, like they were dropping off a borrowed dish. When I opened it, my mother, no, the woman who raised me, stood there in a cranberry coat holding a paper bag. "I brought the pumpkin cookies you like," she said, as if that could fill the silence she felt creeping in from the hallway. My father stood slightly behind her, hands tucked in his coat pockets, face unreadable. Ethan appeared beside me. We didn't speak, just stepped back and let them in. They sat stiffly on the couch. My mom placed the bag carefully on the coffee table, like it was a peace offering. Her eyes darting around our apartment. My dad didn't sit. He stood behind her like a shadow, jaw tight. "We spoke to the police," she said finally. Her voice was controlled, too calm. "They said you filed a report." I nodded once. "I did." She flinched, just slightly. "You could have come to us first." I stared. "Would you have told me the truth?" Her mouth opened, then shut. My dad sighed through his nose. "We didn't want to hurt you," she said softly now. Ethan leaned forward. "So it's true." My dad's shoulders slumped. "Yes," he said. "You're not biologically ours." The words didn't sting. They didn't need to. I already knew. But hearing it out loud carved something deep into the space between us. "Where did I come from?" I asked. There was a pause. "She was young," my mom said. "Your mother, too young. The war was getting worse. We were leaving, and she wasn't. She asked us to take you, begged us. She had no papers," my dad added. "They wouldn't have let her through. But with you, they did." Ethan spoke carefully. "So you used her daughter to get refugee status?" My mother's lip trembled. "No. She wanted you to have a better life." Then why fake the photos? I asked. My dad didn't blink. Because we didn't want you to feel different, to feel like you didn't belong. So you erased someone else's life to make me fit yours? Neither of them answered. She reached into her purse and pulled out a photo, one I'd seen before. Me, maybe 6, holding my dad's hand in a park. This one's real, she said. Like that made any of it better. I didn't touch it. Tell me her name, I said. My mom looked confused. What? Her name, the woman who gave birth to me. They exchanged a glance. My dad looked tired. Adelina Mustafic. No last known address, no phone number, just a name, worn thin by time and guilt. They stood. We didn't steal you, my mom said. We saved you. But I didn't respond, because for 10 seconds, I almost believed her. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with a name and a question I couldn't answer. Adelina Mustafic. It didn't sound familiar. But when I whispered it aloud, something stirred. Not memory exactly, more like a pull. A recognition deep in the ribs. Ethan sat beside me, laptop open, searching in silent concentration. Mustafic, he muttered, typing through foreign sites and message boards. Most common in Bosnia, scattered throughout the Balkans. A few possible matches. We tried everything. Search engines, missing persons databases, old refugee records, Facebook. We found dozens of Adelines. Teachers, nurses, grandmothers. Dead ends. Then one profile stopped us both. No filters, no smiles. Just a woman in her early 50s, hair pulled back in a loose twist, faint lines around her eyes. She wore no makeup. Her eyes looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. But what made me stop breathing wasn't the photo. It was her face. Same jawline, same heavy gaze, same shape of the mouth when it rested neutral, unreadable. Ethan leaned over. She looks like you. I shook my head slowly. No, I look like her. Her about section listed a town, Gorazde, Bosnia, a city that meant nothing to most people. But I remembered hearing that word once, whispered when I was 10, and my mom had slipped up during a phone call. We crafted a message together. Simple, polite, translated through Google, and double-checked by a friend of Ethan's who spoke Bosnian. Hello. I was given your name. I believe I might be your daughter. We hit send. Then we waited. I didn't sleep. I barely blinked. The reply came at 4:17 a.m. Can we talk? We set up a video call later that day. I don't remember agreeing to it. Ethan handled everything. I just sat there, blanket around my shoulders, heart pounding like a drum line. Then the screen lit up, and there she was. Older than the photo, hair darker, but her eyes. Her hand flew to her mouth, her other hand trembled slightly. I wasn't sure, she said. Her voice was accented but gentle. But now I see you. I tried to speak. Couldn't. My throat locked. She whispered a name. Lejla. I blinked hard. That was your name. My Lejla. Something in me cracked and rearranged. She inhaled sharply. I never gave you away. You were 5. I left you with our neighbor, just for a few hours while I went to register us for resettlement. When I came back, you were gone. I covered my mouth. She said someone had come for you, but no one knew who. We searched for weeks, months. I filed reports. I lost everything. She paused, tears running down her cheeks. I didn't know where to look, until now. And someone who thought she had no memories left, remembered the scent of citrus. 2 weeks later, we stood side by side in a small precinct office. Adelina wore a navy coat with buttons shaped like tiny leaves. Her hands were shaking, but her eyes were clear. I brought the photos, the altered ones, the identical smiles, the cropped shadows. I laid them on the officer's desk like shattered pieces of my childhood. Detective Ramirez was there, along with an official from the International Missing Persons Task Force. He asked questions in a careful tone, pausing often to let the translator catch up when Adelina's voice faltered. Then she did something I didn't expect. She reached into her purse and unfolded a worn, creased flyer. A missing person notice. My face, rounder, younger, last seen in Gorazda, Bosnia, wearing a red scarf. "This is her," Adelina said, gently but firmly. "This is my daughter." I stared at the paper. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from something heavier, recognition. For the first time in my life, there was proof that I had existed before them, that I hadn't just materialized one day into a family where I didn't belong. The next step was the DNA test. It took a week. During that time, I moved out of my apartment. Ethan and I stayed at a short-term rental near the river. He cooked. I stared at walls. Adelina called once a day, just to hear my voice. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes I did. The results came in on a Wednesday afternoon. 99.9987% probability of maternity. The case moved fast after that. My adoptive parents, Gerald and Susan Turovich, were taken into custody 2 days later. Not just for abduction, but for immigration fraud, falsifying federal documents, and concealing the international disappearance of a minor. Turns out they had never renounced their Serbian citizenship. They simply tucked the truth away, along with my past, into a drawer they never expected anyone to open. Their American citizenship was revoked. No trial, no plea deal, no second chances. They were deported quietly, their case sealed under federal jurisdiction. Adelina and I were granted approval under the Family Reunification Protection Clause. Her resettlement application, denied 2 decades earlier because her daughter had disappeared, was suddenly reopened. Nah, my adoptive sister, stayed. Of course she did. She was born here. She showed up one afternoon, holding a half-melted coffee and a face full of guilt. "That was really messed up," she said. Not an apology exactly, but a beginning. I nodded. We talk more now than we ever did growing up. She knows I take my coffee black with 1 sugar. I know she never liked Thanksgiving either. That counts for something. As for me, I went back to the precinct. Alone this time. I requested a name change. Not legally, not yet, but something personal. Camila Leila Mustafic. Because I'm not erasing who I became, but I'm done pretending I was never someone else. Some days, I still catch myself hesitating before saying my name. Not because I don't know who I am, but because now, I do. Camila was the girl who survived, who folded napkins perfectly, smiled when she was told, asked for nothing. Lejla was the girl who was taken, who cried for a mother she couldn't remember and disappeared into someone else's story. I am both. Adelina moved to the US 6 months after the case closed. She teaches beginner English at a community center near our apartment. Says she loves hearing children laugh again. On Sundays, we bake together. Her hands still smell like oranges. Ethan and I are planning our wedding. She's on the guest list. She cried when she saw the invitation. The people who raised me lost everything. And honestly, they built their lives on a lie. So when it collapsed, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. I won't pretend it didn't hurt, that I didn't lose something along the way. But I also gained something no one can edit out of a photo. Truth. And now, when I look in the mirror, I see all of me. Not just a girl in a frame, but someone who finally stepped outside of it. Moral of the story. You can't change how your story begins, but you can reclaim how it ends.